Welcome to Printable Science. In this video, we'll be providing a step-by-step tutorial showing you how to install Inkscape with the OpenSCAD extensions on a Apple Macintosh. This is going to be an incredibly long and boring video for anyone who doesn't actually need to install Inkscape on a Macintosh. But if you're here because you need to do that, or you've got trouble with insomnia, listen to me drone on and put you into a pleasant sleep. Don't adjust your internet feed. I appreciate that this video is not going to be for everyone. Indeed, it's going to be for a very small audience indeed. So you're not going to hurt my feelings or anything like that if you just decide to click on through this one. But thanks for clicking in, and I hope that very soon we'll have a video that you all can enjoy. The reason I'm making this video is because I just want to have all the bases covered, and when we talk about turning two-dimensional illustrations and graphics into 3D objects that we can print on our 3D printers, I can at least refer you to these instructions, and you can get this program with its extensions installed and be able to move forward without laboring that talk about the process of turning 2D into 3D with instructions on how to install. So you may not be interested in this video now, but maybe later when you start seeing the kind of things that we are doing in our projects. Now, we need the program Inkscape because it's a vector drawing program. It's an open source program, and it compares to, in terms of functionality, with Adobe Illustrator. Of course, being open source means that the price is right, it's cheap. And we can certainly use as much as that as we can find. Now, Inkscape is a very complicated program. If you were to set about mastering all its functionality and features, it would take you some time. Fortunately, for our purposes, we require just a very small subset of all the power that it has in order to accomplish the tasks that we have in mind. Now, this tutorial is specifically for Macintosh users. That's because that's the computer I use most. Windows users and Linux users, there are a number of videos out there about installing and using Inkscape. However, if you find that they're confusing and you like the style and presentation of the way I do step-by-step tutorials on program installation, leave me a note in the comments, and if there's enough demand, I'd be happy to revise this to cover the other operating systems. Installing Inkscape on a Mac is slightly more complicated than it is on the other operating systems, which is actually quite unusual for a Macintosh program, but there you have it. The reason is because, at least in the current version of Inkscape, which they tell me is going to be upgraded any day now, the program relies on a library called Xquartz. Now, that's not an open source program, but it is available under a free license, so the cost is still reasonable. Now, Xquartz is a kind of like glue in that it keeps or glues together parts of the program which were developed in Linux with the Macintosh operating system in a sort of seamless environment. So the first thing we need to do before we can install Inkscape is we have to download and install Xquartz. So to install Xquartz, the first thing we have to do is go to the website, and we can do that by launching a browser program. I use Safari most of the time, and when the URL box comes up, type in the URL xquartz.org, and then after you press return, and provided you've got an internet connection that doesn't go incredibly slowly, in a very short time you'll be presented with the Xquartz download page. And this is what comes up. And there's just a single place that you have to click where it says xquartz 2.7.11.dmg. Clicking on that will download the file to your download area. And because we're done with that, you can now close Safari at this point and get it out of the way just so things are simpler to follow. And then you can go to your download section from your taskbar there and click on that. I have mine doing the accordion unfold when you click on something there. And there's the xquartz DMG file. Click on that. The OS system, the Mac operating system, opens it up, or says verify and opening it up. And once it's done that, it opens a window and provides a xquartz package installer, which you can then double click on. And when it double clicks, it comes up with the installer and all the fun stuff that I'm sure you've seen 100 times before. First of all, the introduction, you say, oh yes, that sounds good, continue, read me. That's pretty straightforward, continue. Then we have our license. We continue with that. Then, of course, you have to specifically agree. If you've got the time to spare, go ahead, read the license. And then we agree to that. Then that brings us up to the installation type. And at this point, the operating system intrudes again. You have your username there as the user of your Macintosh. You type in your password, and then you install the software. Now, at this point, and at other points during this tutorial, I'm going to be speeding up whenever we encounter unnecessary waiting, because there's no point in doing the install in real time, because mostly it's just waiting. Then at some point, if you've done everything right, it'll finish with that, and it'll come up with a little dialog box identifying that you will need to allow the installer to access your system events in order for a successful install. So, you will say okay to that, or not. I mean, you should say okay. And then it points out that you'll need to log in and out of your account in order for xquartz to become, it says, your default X11 server, but our purposes, that simply means for the glue to be glued in. So you will say okay to that. Then the installer finishes up, and it points out that the installation was successful, and you can then close that. And then it'll ask if you want to move the xquartz installer to the trash. You might as well. You don't need it anymore. And when that is done, it closes both the windows, or all the windows that were on the screen, and puts the DMG file that was on the desktop in the trash. And there you have it. Now, as I said, it gave us the option, or told us that we need to log in and log out, but I find that for all the pain and suffering that's involved, it's just easier to just do a restart, which does the log on or the log off and log on as part of the whole restart procedure. So at this point, I suggest you click restart, and when it comes back, we'll be able to go on to the next step of our full install procedure. After our restart, we'll need to launch Safari again, launch a browser. And when the address bar appears, we'll need to type in the URL for Inkscape, which is pretty easy. It's just inkscape.org. And once you get there, you'll be provided with the Inkscape homepage. Now, I just want to point out, Inkscape is trying to bring out a new release of the program. And at the time this tutorial was made, the Mac implementation or installer is lagging a bit, so it's going to seem a little bit sort of like we're doing silly stuff, but that's just what we have to do until the Mac development team catches up. So once we get the home page, we click on the download button, we select download, the program comes up. You can see operating systems at the bottom. We, of course, are looking for the Mac, so we click that. And then that tells us or invites us to click on the left there, a .dmg file for the Mac OS. So we click on that because we're good little campers. And then it tells us there's no DMG file for the Mac OS currently, and that we'll need to use the old one. So that link is there, but it tells us once we click on it that, well, we haven't got what you're looking for, so it invites us to use the older one. But the older one will do everything we needed to do. So just click on that link, and then it'll bring back this page, a different page, because you can see it's Inkscape 0.092 instead of Inkscape 0.94, and gives us the choice of the operating system. So for a second time, we select the Mac OS, and this time, however, we have the advantage of the file being downloaded, and we are set to go. So now we're done with that. So we can quit Safari again because we don't really care. And we go to our taskbar again. And there we click on our download section. There's our .dmg Inkscape file. So we click on that, select it. The dialog comes up, tells us it's opening it, and it tells us we just need to click and drag that icon into the applications alias, and that will deposit Inkscape into our applications folder. And once we've done that, the copying's done, and we are done, except that now carry on at this point and just click and drag the Inkscape DMG that's mounted on our desktop and drag that into the trash, which it doesn't really trash it, it just unloads it from the desktop, or ejects it, as they like to call it. Now, if we go down to our applications icon in the taskbar and click on that, you'll see our Inkscape folder, or our Inkscape icon for the program is there, and you'll want to click on that. Now, even though we have a little bit more of an install to do to Inkscape, we've got to run it first so that it will initialize and create some files that, or actually specifically some folders that we'll be needing to stuff with a couple of extra items. So we select Inkscape, and when that bounces up, it reminds us that this is not a program that's going to work in the new Mac OS Catalina. And hopefully by the time Catalina is released, Inkscape will have also taken care of business and will have a 64-bit binary that will work under Catalina, but who can tell? Anyway, we say okay because we know that, and then we're informed that Inkscape can't be opened because it's from an unidentified developer. You may have encountered this kind of thing before, and it's kind of annoying, but there's an easy workaround. We can say okay to this because we understand the problem, and then that puts it away again. So, there's no point in relaunching it without doing anything because it'll just remind us of that again. So put that away. So the workaround for this is straightforward. You simply have to open the applications folder, and you can do that from the taskbar going to the bottom of the available applications, and you can say it says open in Finder. So you select that and it opens the applications folder and you look for Inkscape, and then this is the important, you left or alternate click on the program, and that brings up a little menu. And one of the top option on the menu is open. And that is what we want to do. So we select open. And in this case, it comes up, but the dialog is somewhat different. It identifies that Inkscape's from an unidentified developer, but it gives us the option to either cancel or open. Now, at this point, we of course select open because that's what we want. Now, you only need to do that once, because as soon as you've done it, it'll now launch successfully anytime you click on it. At least that'll be true for as long as you're using this version that you installed. If and when Inkscape comes up with a newer version and you install that, you may encounter the same problem, and you'll need to do the explicit open from the application icon in the application file folder. Does that all make sense? Well, I hope so. Hope it's not too confusing. Now, the first time you run Inkscape, once again, it's going to say it wants to access the Finder. So, yeah, you got to do that or it's not going to work. So click OK. And then, it's pointing out that Inkscape works in concert with Xquartz and the X11 Window operating system. And you can just say OK to that because we don't even really know what that means. So now we're just basically sitting around waiting for Inkscape to load, so we'll just speed it up until it's done. One thing to note, however, of course, is that when you launched Inkscape, it automatically loaded the Xquartz package that we installed before. And you can see its icon popping up beside Inkscape there. And if you look at the top menu bar, you'll see that Xquartz, or at least you'll see that while you're waiting for Inkscape to load, Xquartz is the program that's running. And that's what's going to stay in the menu bar. Anyway, so we continue to just let this program load, and we'll speed things up. So finally, the window opens, and whoopee, there we are. Everything seems to work and look right. Now, at this point, you'll need to note that the thing that makes Inkscape kind of different than probably most of the other programs you're dealing with on your Macintosh is that the file and edit and view are in the Inkscape window. They're not in the menu bar at the top. The menu bar at the top is Xquartz. Below in the window for Inkscape is the file edit. And that's how you open and close and do all the things that you would normally do from things that were in the menu bar. Anyway, we're just going to quit out of Inkscape at this point because all we wanted to do was launch it to have it create all the necessary files and folders. And once we've quit out of Inkscape, then we can quit out of Xquartz too as well. You can, if you want, just quit out of Xquartz or X11, and that will, in terms of shutting the program down, it'll stop Inkscape running as a first step anyway. So once we're back in the Finder, we can close the Finder window, and we can go looking for the final part of the install for our tutorial. What we're looking for is a couple of extensions that a couple of talented people have been working on, and that takes the Inkscape object on your screen and turns it into an OpenSCAD source file, and that is way cool. So we will install those so that we can create OpenSCAD files from any vector program or any vector object that we've got on the screen while we're running Inkscape. So what we need to do that is go to Thingiverse, because that's where these files are posted, and there's a couple of versions, but we want version 7. So first of all, we launch our browser again. We go to the address URL and type in www.thingiverse.com. That's the URL, and then we type /thing colon 1065500, and that'll bring us to the thing on Thingiverse that has the Inkscape to OpenSCAD converter. We say download all files. All the files are downloaded and put in our download file folder, and we're kind of done. So we just simply have to put Safari away again, and then open up our file folder that we got from our Thingiverse download. And you'll notice there's 3 files there. We only need to concentrate on one, and that's the .zip file. It has the actual extensions in that zip file that we need to install into Inkscape. We just have to double click on that to let the Mac built-in decompression program to unzip the zip file, and that gives us a file folder, and if you open that up, you'll see that contains the 2 files that we need to install in Inkscape. Now to do that, let's create a new Finder window, and having gotten that, we'll just move it to the side so that it doesn't obscure the 2 files that we need to move from the Thingiverse download. And here's the sort of annoying thing about, or one of the annoying things about the Mac OS, is that currently it really wants to prevent people that don't know anything from doing something that they don't want to do accidentally, which means, of course, that if you're trying to do something with any kind of technical kind of complexity to it at all, you kind of got to go about it in an odd sort of way. So how that's relevant here is we need to go to a folder that we know exists because it was just created by the Inkscape install. Actually, it was created when Inkscape first ran, and we have to explicitly type what the name or what the path of that folder is. You just can't click and drag, or sorry, click various file folders on your Mac because it's kind of hidden. So when you go to the Go menu bar item and then you select Go to Folder, and when the folder comes up, this is what you type. Tilde, that's that squirrely little thing, that's a shift backwards apostrophe, which is the key right beside the 1. So shift back apostrophe, that's the tilde, then a slash, then config, then /Inkscape/extensions/. Does that sound pretty straightforward? You bet. And when that does that, then it will turn the current new Finder window that you created or that you opened and take you to that file folder. And you just might want to check at the top of the window to see that it says extensions beside the icon of a little file folder. So that's where we want to be. And then we click on our other Finder window, the one that's got the 2 files that we're interested in, and we select them both, and then we click and drag them over to the extensions folder that we just located. We put the files or the folder that the files we just downloaded in away. We don't need that anymore. And we can also put away this extensions folder. And voila, our work is done. So to make sure that we did that install of those extensions properly, let's launch Inkscape again. And once that comes up, you'll see once again, it's X quartz in the Mac system or the desktop menu bar. but there's also a second menu bar within the Inkscape window. And what we do is we go to the extensions menu in the Inkscape menu bar, click on that, and then go down till you hit generate from path, and then that'll have another sub menu come over on the side, and as you can see, there is paths to OpenSCAD. So you select that, let it go, and this window pops up. And if this window popped up, you are all done. So congratulations. Your install of Inkscape is complete. So let's just put it all away again. Quit out of Inkscape, quit out of Xports, and return to our desktop. Congratulations, you've just finished successful completion of this tutorial. Now, I hope this has been useful to those of you who were hoping to learn how to install Inkscape. Otherwise, it's been a total waste of time. But even if this isn't valuable to you now, it may be in time when you start seeing the kind of projects that we are going to be making videos of that you may want to duplicate with your setup at home. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't be a stranger. If you got any comments or questions or concerns, please leave them in the comments below. I also invite you to drop around our webpage, printablescience.com, where all the science that fits.